Hey everyone, welcome to another Codex review. It's been 2 weeks. You know what that means? Another Codex review. Rules of GW, I know. As always, my name is Jay, and today in this series I will be going over my Codex review of the new Dark Angels Codex, which came out today. In this video I'm going to go over my first impressions, and probably just the formations. Because it's, once again, this Codex is a summation of formations, and there's going to be a lot of information in this video. And there's no echo, so you'll be happy. So Dark Angels. Dark Angels are one of the oldest codices in 6th edition. They're the starter set armies, so you know that they're one of the early ones. Chaos Space Marines were the first, Dark Angels were the second, and now they've gotten their Codex review. However, Space Marines got their Codex review 2 weeks ago. So the big question on everyone's mind, at least my mind today, is does this Codex create enough specialness around the Dark Angels that it warrants the taking of Dark Angels over a vanilla Marine chapter? That's the big question, and I don't know if I can address it. There's going to be a lot of debate about this. In a lot of ways, I don't think so. In some ways, yes. My first impressions are just that. It's close, but seems in a lot of ways slightly weaker than the Vanilla Marines book. There are some benefits, which I'll be going over. I'm not going to be a negative Nelly all the time. If you love playing Dark Angels... Now, Dark Angels, one of the things that made Dark Angels really, really cool in the previous Codex was there were technically 3 wings that you could... or 4 strategies you could run. The 3 different wings were Green Wing, so majority of tactical Marines. You could do... in that case, most people would just say run Vanilla Marines because they're better. They have access to grav weapons and Centurions and all that stuff. There was the Deathwing. Now, the Deathwing was my favorite part of the Codex, as you probably know by watching my battle reports. I love the Deathwing. A bunch of Terminators dropping in turn 1 or starting on the battlefield, knocking out your opponents. It wasn't the most competitive. By the end, most people can deal with Terminators with relative ease, but it was fun. This wing took the biggest hit in the Codex, and I'll be talking about it throughout the series as well. Deathwing, if you're a pure Deathwing player, you're going to be sad, because pure Deathwing took a huge hit in this Codex. Ravenwing, which is the 3rd sect of Dark Angels, they're still viable. You can still run pure Ravenwing, but it becomes a little harder, but they're going to be competitive. Now, the big question is, are they worth taking over White Scar Bikers? That I'm going to leave up to you. I'll discuss throughout this Codex review. So not only am I going to discuss this Codex in relation to its previous Codex, I'm discussing this Codex in relation to the Space Marine Codex that came out 2 weeks ago. Now, if you really want to check out a really cool review with a bit of an echo, go check it out. It's in the contents as well. So that's the question. Is this worth warranting over Vanilla Marines? In a lot of ways, no. In some ways, yes. So that's what I'm going to say. So my first impressions are just that. It's going to be an interesting Codex. I'm actually kind of really sad about what they did with Deathwing. They nerfed Deathwing into the ground, because Deathwing Assault got nerfed with a heavy hammer, and they removed the ability to take Ravenwing and Deathwing as troops. I kind of saw this coming. I've been talking about my Painting the Jays for months, but what gave me hope was when they kept bikers in the Vanilla Marine Codex, the ability to take bikers as troops. I was hoping that they'd keep Deathwing. They also kept Terminators as troops for Grey Knights. But no, that's not the case. Unfortunately, you can't take Deathwing and you can't take Ravenwing as troops anymore. So now they have their own formations. Unfortunately, the Deathwing formation has a huge major flaw, and I'll be going over that in a little bit. So, yeah, that's it. As I said, to sum it up, most things stayed the same in cost. Some things got slightly cheaper. They got access to grav weapons, and they got pretty much in line with the current Space Marine Codex from 2 weeks ago. However, they're missing a few things, like, Storm Ravens, Storm Talons, and Centurions, which are a huge deficit. But, yeah, that's my first impressions. So, let's go over it. Once again, this Codex is a summation of formations, like the Space Marine Codex, the Eldar Codex, the Necron Codex. And the main formation is called the Lion's Blade Strike Force. Now, the benefits of the Lion's Blade Strike Force are pretty cool. That I will say. They're pretty cool. So the first benefit is company support, and this is the same as the Space Marine Codex. If your strike force contains 2 battle demi companies, you get all the vehicles that the battle demi companies have access to for free. So if you have 3 tactical Marine squads in each one, which you have to take, so 6 tactical Marine squads, they can take a Rhino, a Razorback, or a drop pod. You get a free one for each squad. And I think Razorbacks are going to be the key, and just stack Razorbacks with las cannons. But, once again, that does beg the question. If you're going to take 2 demi companies in your army, why won't you just take Vanilla Marines? Because, up to you. But it begs that question, which we'll be going over. And the second one is Supreme Fire Discipline. Now, this is the good one, people. This is hilarious. This is going to make Orc players and Tyranid players very sad. And possibly Demon players. Is, unless jinking, all models in this formation that have the Grim Resolve special rule, which is almost everyone now, it's kind of the universal special rule of the Dark Angels, it's kind of their chapter tactic, fire Overwatch using their normal ballistic skill characteristic. So, if you assault tactical Marines, they are overwatching with their bolters, with their meltas, at what? Ballistic skill 4. They're going to annihilate you. This is really going to hurt armies that are salty and that have bad armor saves. Tyranids, Orcs, I'm looking at you. Demons, looking at you too. This is going to be hard to them. This is going to be pretty powerful. This is one of the probably most powerful things in the Codex right now, is that. Because if you take the formations, you overwatch a full ballistic skill. And as I said, the key to this formation is you're going to take a little bit of everything. Just like the Space Marines, if you want to take a Lion's, strike force, you got to be prepared to take a little bit of everything. Because a Lion's Blade strike force. Because that's the thing. So the core of every Lion's Blade strike force is the Battle Demi Company in a similar fashion to the Space Marines, vanilla Space Marines. And to take a Demi Company, you need at least 1 Company Master or Chaplain. Company Master is the equivalent of a captain for the Dark Angels. 0 to 1 Command Squad, 0 to 1 Company Veteran Squad, 3 Tactical Squads, 1 Assault Squad, 1 Devastator Squad, 0 to 1 units of Dreadnoughts. That's it. Now, once again, I have to bring up the point, because that Demi Company that I just listed off is everything that's in that Demi Company is in the vanilla, but the vanilla also have access to other things. They get a choice. They can take an Assault Squad, Bike Squad, Attack Bike Squad, Unit of Land Speeders, or Centurion Assault Squad for the fast attack part of that. Or they can take a Devastator Squad or Centurion Devastator Squad for the heavy, or Dreadnoughts, Ironclad, or Venerables. Now, I'm guessing 1 unit of Dreadnoughts in this case is also Venerable. I'm hoping that they have access to Venerable, but people who play rules as written could point out that the Vanilla Marine Codex did implicitly state Venerable Dreadnoughts, and this one did not. It only said Dreadnoughts. So, up to you. I'm guessing it means Venerable as well. I'm going to play rules as intended. So, once again, I'm going to be asking this question a lot through this Codex review. If you're going to play 2 Battle Demi Companies, it probably would be worth taking Vanilla Marines over Dark Angels, in the sense that Vanilla Marines, you had access to a whole lot of things, and the chapter tactic. Now, it is really cool to overwatch at full ballistic skill. I'll give you that for sure. And once again, they keep objective secured. I'll be going over that in a future video. But if you're playing Vanilla Marines, you get access to a whole bunch of different choices. Versus this one where it's like 1 thing per slot. I don't know. Up to you. And of course, for every Battle Demi Company, you have at least 1 in your strike force. You have to take at least 1 auxiliary, and you can take 0 to 1 command per corps. And the commands are called the Inner Circle, which is the same name as the old special rule of the Codex. Of the old Dark Angel Codex. And it's just Azrael, Belial, Samael, Company Master, Interrogator, Chaplain, or Librarian. And there's footnotes, but the footnotes don't actually... I'm playing the... Oh, there we go. Asmodai may be taken care of instead of an Interrogator, Chaplain. Ezekiel may be taken care of instead of a Librarian. Saberclaw may be taken in place of Samuel. So again, I don't know. Because in the Space Marine Codex, you can take a bunch of different HQs instead of the Captain or the Chaplain. In this case, you have to take a Chaplain or a Company Master, and then you can take all the HQs on the side as a company, as a choice. Up to you. If you really like running tons of HQs, this is a good choice for you. But if you wanted just 1 HQ in your army, you're out of luck. Then there are the auxiliaries. And once again, I'm going to be comparing these because most of them are involve the same things as the Vanilla Marine Codex. I'll be comparing a little bit. There's the Ravenwing Attack Squadron, which is one Ravenwing Bike Squad or one Ravenwing Attack Bike Squad, one Ravenwing Landspeeder or one Ravenwing Landspeeder Vengeance. There's the Ravenwing Support Squadron, one unit of Ravenwing Landspeeders, one Ravenwing Dark Shroud or Landspeeder Vengeance. The Ravenwing Silence Squadron, two Nephilim Jet Fighters, one Ravenwing Dark Talon. There's the 10th Company Support, which is just 1 to 5 units of scouts. Cool. Pretty simple. So if you wanted to, you could take 2 Battle Demi Companies and just 1 squad of scouts, and that's your support choice, and then you just load up all the guys in your Demi Company. That is an advantage of this codex, I do find. Is that if you're trying to play the double Battle Demi Company, it's a 1 squad of scout tax to get 2 Battle Demi Companies, and then just load them up with las cannon Razorbacks for free. The Razorbacks are free, but the las cannon upgrade costs you points. There's the Deathwing Redemption Force, which is Belial, a Company Master, Interrogator, Chaplain, or Librarian. 2 to 5 Deathwing Terminator Squads, 0 to 1 Deathwing Command Squads, 0 to 1 Deathwing Knights, 0 to 1 unit of Venerable Dreadnoughts. And that's maybe actually thinking about it then, I think Dreadnoughts belong in the Demi Company, and Venerable Dreadnoughts belong in the Redemption Force. Yeah. So again, up to you. This is, so as I said, now if you want to play this list, you're going to have to take a bunch of little things, a bunch of things. You can't just play all Deathwing, all Ravenwing. Even if you want to play all Deathwing, you're going to be in trouble when you look at the rules of their formation, of their detachment. And the final one, the Hammer of Caliban. 1 Tech Marine, 1 Land Raider Crusader, or Land Raider Redeemer, 1 unit of Predators, Whirlwinds, or Vindicators. Again, I'm not a fan of this one because it's interesting, but in the Vanilla Codex, there's a formation of Land Raiders that makes them hilariously dangerous, and there's a formation involving those other 3 vehicles. And so to take 3 Vindicators, you need to take a Tech Marine and 2 Independent Whirlwinds. And then you take the 3 Vindicator list that drops a giant pie plate of doom on your opponent. In this one, you need to take a Tech Marine and a Land Raider. A Land Raider is way more expensive than 2 Whirlwinds. So it's an expensive formation to take if you want to run the triple Vindicator list. So again, if you want to run the triple Vindicator list, go Vanilla over this one. And that's it. And that's it. So again, the rules are cool. You get Overwatch of full ballistic skill. That's pretty fun. You know, a whole army Overwatching full ballistic skill will put a fear. If you know you're playing against orcs, Tyranids, demons, awesome sauce, right? It's pretty much hilarity against anything, but against very salty armies, it'll be fun. So that being said, so as I said, there are definitely some pros to this. A lot of people are going to debate whether or not it's worth it taking that over the vanilla Space Marines detachments. But we'll go over the other things as well. Other things that I have to bring up, like, as a Deathwing, nerfed into the frickin' ground, unfortunately. But GW understood the fact that, you know, there was a Ravenwing players out there, and there are some Deathwing players out there. Not some. Like, there was, you know. So what they did was, they decided to make 2 other detachments in this codex. The first one's called the Deathwing Strike Force, and it's the Deathwing detachment, and the other one's called the Ravenwing Strike Force. Makes sense. So now we'll go over the Deathwing Strike Force. Oh, by the way, another thing of my first impressions, they gave, you know, grab weapons. Awesome. I think I mentioned that earlier. So, Deathwing Strike Force. It requires 1 HQ and 2 elites. And the options are 2 HQs and 10 elites. So you can take up to, you know, 12 squads of Terminators if you want. You can take up to 3 HQs if you want, right? This is the Deathwing list. So you get all your Deathwing Knights, your Deathwing Command Squads, your Deathwing Terminators, all having fun. But the problem with this formation is that, A, they don't even get Deathwing Assault. B, Deathwing Assault's it's not as good as it once was. I'll be going over that in a future video of the formation. But basically, they no longer drop in turn 1. That is a huge nerf. Deathwing do not drop in turn 1 anymore, and they have to start in reserve. So you won't be able to see them until at least turn 2. But their command benefits are Summoned to War, which basically, All units in this detachment must begin the game in Deep Strike Reserve. If your army includes a Ravenwing attack squadron or a Ravenwing strike force, you can choose to automatically pass or fail any reserve rules you make. For units in this detachment, there is no need to roll. Cool. So if you take Ravenwing, you have to take Ravenwing essentially and start them on the table if you want to take Deathwing. Because now the problem is your entire army is in reserve. Right? This entire strike force has to start the game in reserve. And they no longer have the ability to come in turn 1. So if you don't take any other formations or detachments, you lose the game, turn 1. You will not have any models on the table at the end of turn 1. Your opponent just shakes your hand and that's game. That's huge. Really huge. So the Deathwing, though they still have made it that you can take a Deathwing army, you can't take an all Deathwing army because you have to start with something on the table. And if you don't have something very survivable on the table, your opponent's full list will focus on that unit or whatever you have on the table. And if they kill them, you're out of luck because then you lose once again turn 1. If you don't bring Ravenwing as a helper for this detachment, you don't get to choose. So you have to roll. So there's a good chance 2/3 of your guys won't even come on turn 2. And the guys who come on will just be able to shoot and do nothing turn 2. And then the rest of the guys that come in turn 3 will shoot and won't be able to assault turn 4. Huge problem. Coming in piecemeal with Terminators. Because if your opponent has an answer to Terminators, all they're going to do is watch them drop in, annihilate them one squad at a time. And they also have the rule, First Knight of the Caliban, which I'm pretty sure they get to reroll their Warlord. They get to choose their Warlord trait and reroll if they want. I'll be going over that in the next video. And the next one, take the fight to the enemy. Units from this formation can either shoot and run or run and shoot in the shooting phase of the turn they arrive from Deep Strike. So it's equivalent to the Grey Knights. But the Grey Knights, however, if you take their detachment, they can drop in turn 1, which is a huge difference. Grey Knights, that is way better because they can drop in turn 1 on a 3-up versus Dark Angels, which have to wait for turn 2. And another big problem with this detachment is if you're playing a Maelstrom War game, your opponent will walk all over you for the first 2 turns. Especially if you're going second, you have to go first. And if you end up going second, your opponent will go to all the objectives turn 1. And then do the same thing turn 2. It will be very easy for them to score points, especially if it's a game like Deadlock. Deadlock will be hilarious if you're facing Deathwing because you can grab a lot of points turn 1. Meanwhile, your opponent has very few models on the table. Grab a bunch of new cards turn 2 and score a bunch of points, possibly even before your opponent models land on the table. Yeah. So, I don't know. That's the Deathwing Strike Force. As I said, I'm going to remain positive in this review, but there are a lot of inherent flaws with the Deathwing Strike Force. You can't just take Deathwing. You got to take something else that's start on the table, and hopefully it survives because your opponent's force will face those guys, and you can't start with one squad of scouts on the table. That won't really work. If you start with one squad of scouts hidden and your opponent can see them and kill them, you lose. But the Ravenwing Strike Force is potentially viable. And as I said, the Ravenwing are kind of the one glowing factor. Now people are going to debate whether or not it's better to take Ravenwing or to take White Scars Bikers, but Ravenwing are kind of the shining star of this codex in my opinion. So their detachment is 1 HQ, 2 fast attacks. And you can take up to 2 more HQ, 1 elites, 10 fast attacks, and 3 heavy supports. So again, because their stuff is throughout the codex, you'll find. But it's pretty powerful. Restrictions, all units in this detachment must have the Ravenwing special rule. And for Deathwing, they must have the Deathwing special rule. Now, the Ravenwing special rule, the Deathwing special rule, by the way, just gives them, fearless and hatred of Chaos Space Marines. But the Ravenwing special rule is awesome. It gives them the ability to reroll their Jinx saves. That's awesome. Because even if they don't have the better Jinx save, the 3-up Jinx save, they can still reroll their 4-ups, which is really powerful. So their special rules are the Huntsman, It's basically first huntsman. Once again, you get to reroll your warlord trait if you don't like it. And also, the warlord traits in this codex are pretty weak. Speed of the Raven. During your first turn or second turn, if your units in this detachment were placed in reserve, don't place them in reserve because then you lose the game. Any units from this detachment that turbo boost or move flat out count as jinking until your next turn. However, units from this detachment that do can still fire their guns normally in the next turn. They do not have to fire snapshots. So turn 1, you can turbo boost for a 3 up jink potentially. And it counts as jinking, but you get to fire as normal the next turn. That's a cool benefit. Keeps them alive so they can get in what they want to do next turn. And strike is 1. All the units in this detachment must either be placed in reserve or deployed as normal. Obviously, you're going to start them on the table. If placed in reserve, all units in this detachment automatically arrive start the second turn. Which you could do, but I don't see any reason to start them on the table. I don't see any reason to start them off the table. I don't. So, that's it. So those are the 3 detachments. The next video will go over the warlord traits, the relics, a couple more of the special rules. But just to sum up, as I said, it kind of is a huge hit to the Deathwing. There are some shining things in the Codex, which I'll be going over in videos. It's the Ravenwing, to be honest. The new Ravenwing special rule is awesome. The detachment rules are cool to be able to fire Overwatch at full ballistic skill. That is very powerful. It does still beg the question, is it better to take the Vanilla Marines or to take Dark Angels? I don't think this Codex did enough to make it a for sure answer, but I will still see some arguments for either way. And yeah, the fact that Deathwing Assault got removed, they can no longer automatically come on turn 2, and the turn they come on, they can just run and shoot as opposed to having twin link guns. So it's a huge change. It won't be it's not still the same as it was before. So I think the best thing will be a combination of models in the army. So you can't do the all Deathwing army. You can probably still do the all Ravenwing army if you want, but if you want to do Deathwing, you'll have to run other things for sure. So thank you very much for watching this part of my in-depth review of the new Dark Angels Codex. Over the next part, I will be going over the special rules. I will be going over the warlord traits and the new psychic powers. They got access to some psychic powers, pretty cool stuff. And yeah, so thank you very much for watching. Leave a comment in the comment section down below what you thought about it. And I promise I won't be a Debbie Downer of this thing. I'm going to try to remain positive, but I will be honestly comparing it to the Space Marine Codex because that is a fair comparison. So until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting.